Good morning, everyone. Today I want to talk about something that has really been important recently, and especially in the last, if you've been alive in the last 50 years, it's extremely important. It's really relevant to you. But we talk a lot about wealth inequality and tax the rich, don't tax the rich, tax cuts for the rich, whatever. But what I want to talk about today is wealth inequality within the 1% specifically. So it all kind of started with this. In 1989, the top 1% held 22.8% of total net worth, and it has surged to 30.8% as of 2024. So it shows a growing concentration of wealth at the very top of America. So, and a deeper look into the data reveals that the 0.1%, the ultra wealthy segment, accounts for 13.8% of total American net worth, and the remaining 0.9%, the other 90% of the 1%, holds 17% of the total US net worth. So the top 10% at the top of the 1% hold 13.8% of total American wealth. So altogether, the top 1% holds almost $50 trillion in wealth. So what I did was I was like, okay, so what portion do they like actually like? What's the number, right? So I was like, what is 13.8% of 30.8? Right? Like 13.8% is what percent of 30.8? So it's 44.8%. So of the top 1% of America, the 0.1% holds 44% of the wealth. And so we always talk about like the bottom 50% of America, the next 30%, the next 19%, and the 1%. But no one ever really talks about what goes on within the 1%. So for those of you who don't know, there's 333.29 million people in America. The top 1% is the top 3 million. So that's still like a ton of people. This top 0.1% is 333,000 people. So altogether, the top 0.1%, these 333,290 people, hold 22 trillion 41 billion 600 million dollars. That is an absolutely absurd amount of wealth. $22 trillion. So I wanted to talk about the number of millionaires and billionaires within the U.S. And the only real reason I show this is just to show like the billionaires are growing. As of 2021, there's 724 billionaires in the U.S. alone, and that the people who the credit, so I don't know what credit Suisse means, but I'm pretty sure it is literally a bank of some sort. They categorize an ultra high net worth individual as someone who has a net worth of $50 million or above, which is kind of insane. So if you take this 22 trillion and you divide it by this 333,000, so what these people are on average, this is an average, it's not like actual worth, is 66 million each on average. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, but there's 700 billionaires. So out of that 333 million or 333,000 people, 740 of them are billionaires, right? So I'm like sitting here like they probably heavily skew that average. So what I did is I found a list of the top 400 richest people in America. And I added up all these little highlighted numbers here. I'm pretty sure I have them highlighted on your screen too. I added them all up, all the way up to 200. So I only took the top 200 publicly richest people in America, and I added up their total wealth in billions. So they had $4,000 billion. So 4.4 trillion in the top 200 people. 200 Americans with a net worth of almost $4.5 trillion altogether. Holy crap! So I'll just say on average, and I'm sure I'll show the calculation. That's like 22 billion each. Billion each on average, right? So you have Elon Musk at the top, who's worth, what was it, 204 billion, 244 billion. So he heavily skews that. So on average, all these billionaires are worth 22 billion on average. So I was like, okay, let's take that 22 trillion that the 0.1%, the top 0.1% of America owns, and let's remove that wealth from the top 200. So now it's only, and I mean only, 17 trillion 616 billion. And now I'm like, okay, now we got to remove the 200 people, obviously, because they're not included in this statistic anymore. And it has brought down the average to 53 million each. What, dude? Just removing 200 people and their wealth brought down the average of over 300,000 people by I have the exact number. By $13 million. We talk a lot about wealth inequality in America. On average, the top 300,000 people should all be ultra high net worth individuals. They are not. When you have the top that is so heavily skewed that the top 200 people will bring down the average net worth of the top 0.1% by removing just 200 people, you lose on average $13 million each on average. That is absolutely insane wealth inequality within the top 1%. So this is why, as wealth inequality becomes worse in America, like it's pretty bad out there, there's things like this where it shows what's the median net worth, what's the average net worth. And the disparity is so great because that literally is the biggest indicator that wealth is accumulating at the top. Almost $200,000 is the median household net worth. The average is over $1 million. So an $800,000 difference across all of America. So this $13 million that they're skewing the average for in the top 1%, they're skewing the average across all of America by 800 grand. That's the average in America. So what does it take to be in the top 1% households? In 2023, a net worth of over $13 million to be in the top 1% of America. So you sit here and it's like, we talk a lot about wealth inequality and people are sitting there going, yeah, tax the rich, tax the rich. And I want people to understand that if you tax the rich, like if you have a net worth of $13 million, to put that into perspective, that is, you have a big home or maybe even a house, a cabin, and a vacation home somewhere else. You have a business or two that do well, probably pretty small time, honestly. And that's it. You own your cars, you have your houses paid off, your businesses don't go into debt every year, you turn profit, and you have a net worth of 13 million. So that's like what it takes. And obviously that's a lifetime of work, but that's all it is. That's a very simple life, right? And so when we say tax the rich, I'm not talking about them. This guy who's worth 13 million who's sitting there going, dude, I'm in the top 1%. That's crazy. I'm part of the top 3 million people in my country. That's awesome. When I say tax the rich, I'm not even talking about the top 0.1%, like the beginning. If the average of the entire 0.1% is 66 million, and if you take out the top 200 people, it becomes 52 million on average. If you have made it into the top 0.1%, you are not worth $50 million. So understand that when we talk about this 0.9% of America, the underneath the 0.1%, the 90% of the 1%, no one there is worth $50 million. No one. Not a single person is worth 50 million. If you have 50 million in net worth, if you are an ultra high net worth individual, you are well into the 0.1%. You are well on your way into the 1.1%. So it is unreasonable for us to sit here and be like, yeah, tax the rich, tax the rich, tax the rich. Oh, but I feel so bad for the bottom 90% of the 1%. It's the target isn't them. They're not even in the crosshair. They're not the rich. That's how far inequality within the 1% has skewed to the top. Like, I had a guy mention the donor class, and he talks about the top half of the 1%, and I'm like, dude, that's not even enough. Like, the top half, the top 50% of the 1%, those 40% aren't even worth $50 million. The bottom 10% of the 0.1%, they're not worth 50 million either. They're just not. It is actually impossible for them to be worth $50 million. So I want people to understand going forward. I want people to understand. If I say tax the rich, I mean the rich. I mean the ultra wealthy. And ultra high net worth, this is stupid. Because 50 million in today's society, ultra high net worth, ultra high makes it sound like that's absolutely insane. Like that's the craziest number ever. What are you calling Elon Musk? What are you calling him? Is he an epic ultra wealthy billionaire? What do you mean ultra wealthy at 50 million? Like we deal with such high numbers that 50 million doesn't even sound like a lot of money. Like I can just throw that out. Never, never in any time, any day and age before modern history has anyone ever thought of 50 million as nothing. Because in the scope of America, it is nothing. When you think of someone who's worth 50 million, you sit there and go, "Oh yeah, they're a multimillionaire." Dude, they are in the top they are in the top 1%, obviously, but they're in the top of the top 0.1%. They are average for the 0.1%. They are so unfathomably high up on the totem pole, they don't understand what we go through. They don't. Wealth inequality within the 1% has gotten so bad, and I need people to realize that the bottom 93, I would say the bottom 93% of the 0.1% are fine. They're fine. It's the 0.03% that really bring up a lot of concerns. That's the donor class. And it's so much smaller than people realize. Like obviously it is a lot of people. Like it's a town, right? But it's such a smaller group of people than anyone really realizes. And I just wanted to put that into perspective for everyone. So, yeah. See ya.